All right. I am going to bring out our first guest. We are, again, very excited to have both of them here. The first one is, of course, Gerald Bostock, the plaintiff in Bostock versus Clayton County, which is a landmark case that recently gave us our, basically our due rights, which when we get into the conversation, we'll see exactly why it was such a long time coming and why we're so grateful to have him here, as well as his attorney, Tom Mew from Buckley and Beal in Atlanta. Both of these amazing individuals are going to be here right now, so let's welcome them to the stage. Hello, Gerald, Tom.
Good morning.
Hello there. Good to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cool. So when we get started, Gerald, if you could just give us some background to your amazing story. I've been grateful to be able to have heard it, and I think our community will be happy to hear it too.
Okay, great. And actually, first, I'd like to thank you, Andres, and Marco, for having me today. It's truly an honor to be here with you. And I'd like to share that the Contigo Fund and all of today's organizers are amazing community leaders. And I'm really humbled to be a part of this year's symposium. But you know, I never dreamed I would have been here with you today. It was 7 years ago this month that I was fired for being gay. While difficult and filled with lots of highs and lows, this journey has just been incredible. And you know, I wouldn't change a thing, because as a community, we did this together. I worked for Clayton County for 10 years. I put in a decade of hard work advocating for child abuse and neglect victims in Clayton County, Georgia, just outside Atlanta. And I'm proud of what I achieved. When I was fired, I was devastated. I lost my source of income and I lost my medical insurance. And this was at a time I was still recovering from prostate cancer. But I stood up and said, this is wrong. And that fight ended up all the way to the United States Supreme Court. It's been a long, tough road getting here today, but today we stand here together as a community. On October 8th, I was proud to stand before the Supreme Court on behalf of all of us. And you know, a few weeks ago, it was legal in some places in this country for us to get married on Sunday and then turn around and get fired for it on Monday. Now, millions of people, Americans across this country, don't have to fear that crushing reality.
Your story is something that a lot of us can resonate with, you know. I personally was in the United States Navy for the repeal of the mass mental. And I remember that overwhelming feeling of validation the moment that it was repealed. And I never thought I was ever going to get to feel that again. And here we are, right? Like the moment that the news came out here in Orlando, just so you know, like all of the activists in our area gathered around Lake Eola to just breathe a collective sigh of relief. And I think we absolutely have to thank you for that, you know? Yeah. So, you know, I do have some questions that have been submitted prior to. And by the way, anyone that is that is watching now live, if you want to submit your questions, please go ahead and leave them in the comments. We'll go ahead and ask Gerald and Tom on this. But before we do that, Tom, if I just may, how does it feel to actually argue a case in front of the Supreme Court?
Well, thank you again so much for having us this morning. It's an honor for both of us to be here and to support this, all the good work that is being done in Orlando. To be clear, I did not actually present the argument in the consolidated cases. That was Professor Pam Carlin of the Stanford Supreme Court Law Clinic, who did a tremendous job on that. Gerald's case was consolidated with Mr. Zarda's case, Don Zarda. And the Supreme Court basically has a one lawyer one one case, one lawyer, one argument rule there. So while we moved for divided argument, it ended up being Professor Carlin, and she did an absolutely outstanding job. I was at council table there before the justices, and that was certainly a tremendous experience to be part of that, to be part of the briefing of this case, to bring Gerald's case to the Supreme Court. And now we have the opportunity to return to the trial court, to take Gerald's fight for justice to the next step, and to work to secure him his day in court as his fight for justice continues.
Thank you. And, that leads perfect for our next question, because you shared that it's taken 7 years since you were wrongfully fired to even get this far, right? Georgia and Florida are both at-will states. So, for those of us that work in at-will states, how do you actually go about fighting unjust firing?
Well, the typical statement on at-will employment is this: you can fire someone for a good reason, a bad reason, or no reason, but you can't fire them for an illegal reason. And we have, in a state like Georgia, where we don't have really any type of anti-discrimination law that would address, for example, the situation in Gerald's case with respect to LGBTQ individuals, it is important then to look to federal law. And Title VII of the Civil Rights Act is the primary anti-discrimination law for the workforce in this country. And our argument was, and fortunately the Supreme Court has agreed, that when an employer discriminates against an individual on the basis of that individual's sexual orientation or gender identity, that employer has violated Title VII's express prohibition against discrimination on the basis of sex. So again, I think your question underscores a key issue, which is, before this decision, and what makes this decision so significant, not only for Gerald, but for millions of Americans in the LGBTQ community, is that we didn't have a uniform federal standard of protection. So in states like Georgia, actually in the majority of states in this country, if one can believe it, there was no state law protecting against LGBTQ discrimination in the workforce. So whether one was protected or not before was basically the luck of the geographic draw. And in our country, equality should never be based on that. It's got to be uniform. It's got to be equality for all. As our recent events have underscored, there's so much work to be done. But we are pleased that the Supreme Court has issued this decision, and we think it's an important step forward in the continuing fight for equality on so many fronts that must continue in this country.
Sorry, I just realized I was muted.
You muted me too. I thought maybe I was being shut down.
So I was just saying this heartfelt thing about how you spent many years advocating for other people's rights. Like, at what point did you know that this was a moment that you could not afford to let go of, that this was a fight that you had to take all the way?
I think two things. First of all, with respect to my client, Gerald, his case, his story is so compelling. For over 10 years, this man was an incredible advocate for at-risk children. He moved mountains. He reached unprecedented levels of success to serve at-risk children in the community. And I think it speaks volumes that after all those years of success, he was fired within a few months of joining a gay softball league. And I think Gerald's story is just one of so many. And it is most disheartening, to say the least, that so many individuals have gone through this, have had to endure this, only to be told that they didn't have a remedy under the law, simply because they were fired for who they are, who they love, or how they identify. And that is simply wrong. And it is illegal. Our position has always been that Title VII outlaws LGBTQ discrimination in the workplace. It's very simple. The statute says what it says, and what it says is it's illegal. And we knew that to secure justice for Gerald, we were going to have to push this. We were unsuccessful at the trial court. We were unsuccessful at our Federal Circuit Court of Appeals. And so I think people need to understand these cases are not test cases. You know, Gerald, Don Zarda, Amy Stevens, these are real people who went through terrible events in their lives as a result of discrimination. And that wrong has to be put right. And I think that we are, with this decision, a lot further down the road. There is now a legal remedy in place across the country. But as I said, there's much work to be done. We look forward to being back into court with Gerald's case, which, believe it or not, is actually in its infancy in the underlying case, and going forward and fighting for justice for Gerald.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Tom. And Gerald, a lot of us that do advocacy work, at least here in Central Florida, you know, sometimes it does feel like you're fighting an uphill battle, right? It's just a constant barrage of like, no, no, no. And then every once in a while we get like golden ray of sunshine, like this is a victory, let's capitalize on this. What words do you have for those of us that are still fighting, who, you know, are LGBTQ plus Black brothers and sisters that are still fighting to get the recognition and the protections that they deserve? What words of encouragement do you have for us?
Well, I think the decision announced last Monday, you know, it lays the groundwork for what we still need to do. And I think the justices made a very clear statement in that opinion that there should be equality for all. And it points to the fact that we need to work harder to do better. And while this decision is certainly welcome news for the LGBTQ community, recent events show us just that there are so many more things that we need to do. And I want to take this moment to lend my voice to stand up with and behind the Black community as well, because racism and discrimination has no place in this world. So again, we just have to work harder to do better.
Absolutely, agreed.
I also hope that in these dark days we've had, not only here in Atlanta in recent days, but you know, recent weeks across this country, that this celebration that we're all sharing in, that maybe that'll just shine a little bit of sunshine and light in some dark days that we've had. And like you said, it will be a symbol of hope that we are committed to continuing the fight for equality for all.
Gerald, if I may, the area of Atlanta, do you live in Atlanta, or I know you live in Georgia, right?
I now live in Atlanta, correct.
Okay, you now live in Atlanta. Okay. So I guess my question is like, how rural of a county were you working in? Because when we think of Atlanta, at least here, we have this idea of like, you know, a very LGBTQ plus friendly area, you know? So what was the actual situation like, you know, reality versus the perception of it?
Well, Clayton County, excuse me, Clayton County is a metropolitan county, but it is considered to be one of the suburb bedroom communities that surround Atlanta. obviously there is a different vibe from Clayton County and those more metro counties that are in the heart of Atlanta.
Okay. I mean, that's relatable. It's the same thing here in Orlando. You come down to our downtown area and you see rainbow flags everywhere, but there is still discrimination in the outer areas. What actually made you interested in speaking to the Central Florida community?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up just a little bit. Could you repeat that question?
Yes, of course. I said, what actually made you interested to speak to the Central Florida community?
Well, certainly in honor and memory of the Pulse nightclub. I mean, that was devastating, not only to your community, but to the LGBTQ community across this country. And I felt like I needed to, and was so appreciative of giving that opportunity to be here with you guys today. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And we're grateful to have you both here. And we are actually about done with our time. We'll be moving into the Mayor's Roundtable, but are there any last words that you would like to leave our community with?
For me, I would just like to say, don't give up. This moment in time for me has been a long journey, and this is the moment I've been waiting for. But again, it's also a sign of hope. And we stand up when we see and recognize something wrong. And we stand together and we stand united so that we can make these types of accomplishments. And I'm just proud and humbled that I've been able to play a part in bringing this moment of history to us. And I share that moment with the Zarda family and with Amy Stevens and her family. Sadly, they're not with us, but I know they're here with us in spirit.
Thank you, Gerald. I really, I'm grateful to have gotten the opportunity to meet you. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for this opportunity.
And Tom, any last words?
First of all, thank you so much for having us. It's been a great pleasure, and we are so proud and grateful of all the important work that's being done in the Central Florida community. I think we all need to stand in solidarity right now, all of us who are fighting for civil rights and equality. There are so many voices in this country that have been silenced or ignored for far too long. And, we're on this march towards justice for true equality. This was an important milestone, but it is not over by any means. And we need to be fighting on all fronts to ensure that equality under the law is not just something that's written on a piece of paper. It's not just a catchphrase. It's the actual reality for all Americans. And we commend you so much for the efforts that you are making in this important fight. And again, thank you so much for allowing us to speak and be a part of this.
Well, thank you so much to both of you. Again, that was Gerald Bostock and Tom Mew. And thank you so much for being a part of history. We're very grateful to have you here today.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.